Howdy YouTube viewers and gear gadget fanatics everywhere. Thanks for tuning in to the WatchBox review today. In today's review we're taking a close look at the Seiko SKX247 diver's tool that you see here on my 62mm wide wrist. So the watch fits me very comfortably. It's only about 185 grams as I have it sized now for my 7 5/8 circumference wrist. So let's take the watch off and hammer out some of the technical specifications. Okay, so the overall lug end to lug end length here is 50 millimeters. Now the solid end links on the bracelet actually extend out a little bit beyond that to a total of 53 millimeters from solid end link to solid end length. The case width, including the crown, is 52 millimeters across the diagonal. The bezel diameter is a 40 millimeter diameter bezel, and the crystal window on the front is 31 millimeters across. The case thickness is 14 millimeters thick, and this case overall is very flat, wide, and angular. There's no case curvature at all to this watch. The bracelet has a gradual taper from 22 millimeters at the solid end link on down to 20 millimeters at the clasp. The links themselves on the bracelet are 33.5 millimeters thick. The entire bracelet is held together using a pin friction collar design. So these are not friction split pins that you find in a lot of other budget type watches. Okay, let's take a closer look at the clasp. The clasp is a standard fold over stamped stainless steel clasp. It's got a nice solid rigid feel to it. It doesn't rattle nearly as much as my Invicta Pro divers and some of my other similarly priced watches. So Seiko did a good job with material selection in this design. It uses a dual push button deploying clasp that you simply push to unlock, and it snaps closed with a very firm and solid feeling snap. The clasp has a fold-over safety lock with the Seiko logo etched into it that snaps firmly in place as well. Okay, there's a diver's wetsuit extension here on this end of the bracelet. Okay, to unlock that wetsuit extension, you simply hold here and push here to unlock it, and you simply unhook the mechanism like so. Once it's closed up, you get another about 5/8 inch of wrist circumference if you want to wear this watch over like a full wristed glove or a wetsuit of some sort. To lock back up the wetsuit extension, you simply hold here and use the little hook here and hook it onto that pin and simply close the flap. Overall, it's a very nicely done wetsuit extension. It's not anywhere near as flimsy and cheap, I guess, as like some of my other watches I've reviewed, but this one here is really nicely done by Seiko. Okay, so let's take a close look at the case back. The case back is a standard screw-in case back that you're going to see on any other 200-meter water-resistant Seiko diver. It's got the Tsunami logo in the middle and name and model number designations around the perimeter. It also has a manufacturer's date code clearly stamped. This watch was made in August of 2007, so what you're looking at is a 4-year-old watch at the time of this filming. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the business end of the watch. Let's see, the dial is a unidirectional rotating dive bezel here. It's got a 120 click design, and it feels great, really smooth. It is slop free and very solid overall. I like the way they presented the first quarter hour of rotation, actually the first 20 minutes of rotation. It's done subtly so that it does not disrupt the overall symmetrical appearance of the watch regardless of where you place this dial around the perimeter. Okay, the crown is this large bolt-looking feature here on the side with the Seiko 5 logo etched into it. It's got a nicely done crown guard on the side, and everything's held together firmly with stainless steel hardware and screws. These large bolt-looking features on the side are not movement pushers. These are Allen bolts that hold together this rubberized polymer plastic case shell that's actually firmly attached around the actual stainless case of the watch. Okay, so let's take a closer look now into the business end and into that dial. So what you're looking at is a multi-level die-cut type of dial. The lowest layer is the black day date wheel complication. I like how they chose a black day and date wheel against the black dial of the watch. There's no reason why watchmakers have to use a white date wheel against a black dial. That's the beauty of an in-house the beauty of the in-house Seiko 7S36 movement, or any of the Seiko in-house movements, is they can control what dial color they want to use for their date complications. Anyhow, so the next layer on that dial contains the Seiko 5 logo. It's kind of got a slight waffle board or checkerboard texture to it that you can't see here indoors, but if you were outdoors you could clearly see it. It also has the Diver's 200 meter ISO 6425 compliance standard. I encourage anybody who's into dive watch collecting or using your watch actively in the water to read up on this ISO 6425 standard, just so you know exactly what you're getting for your hard-earned dollar. It's not the end-all requirement for dive tools, but think of it as like a minimum requirement that Seiko is using for this particular design. A lot of Seiko designs are over-designed and over-engineered to far exceed any kind of ISO standardization, but as a minimum requirement, it's something I think that the consumer should be aware of. Okay, so the next ring around that dial contains the glow-in-the-dark luminescent patches, and Seiko LumiBrite Lume is outstanding. You could spend thousands of dollars on another dive tool watch, another brand or whatever, and come away with an inferior lume quality. If you're really into lume and glow-in-the-dark features on your watches, you owe it to yourself to consider a Seiko diver. They're outstanding for the money. Let's see, the next layer around that dial is the stadium, I guess, chapter ring, or whatever you want to call it, and it contains the minute tick marks, or minute or second tick marks around the perimeter. The hands are beautifully dressed in Seiko's LumiBrite paint that you can see there. You're seeing there the sweeping second hand motion of the Seiko 7S36 automatic movement. It's a very smooth movement, and it's wonderfully done. I believe it's a 21,000 beat heartbeat, I believe, but don't quote me on that. It's a 23 joule automatic movement, and I guess the key points here on the 7S36 are it's a non-manually winding movement, so you cannot manually wind this movement at the crown. Let's see, it uses the motion of your arm when you wear the watch to automatically wind the mainspring using the internal wind rotor that's in there. It is also a non-hacking automatic movement. Okay, so the crown used is a screw-down crown. I'm not sure if I mentioned that yet, but the screw-down crown together with the screw-in case back achieve 20 ATMs of water case pressure resistance, again to the ISO 6425 dive standard. Okay, so let's dim the lights and show you guys the lume. Okay, you can actually see it there, just using the dim, faint fluorescent tube lighting inside this conference room, but I'm going to do you guys a favor and charge it up a little bit with my 90 lumen flashlight. I like to use my 90 lumen Phoenix L1T for the purpose of this demonstration because I think a 90 lumen flashlight is typical for what you're going to find at like REI stores, Home Depot, OSH, places like that. I have flashlights that are much, much brighter than this, but for the purposes of accuracy in my review, this is what I use. Okay, so there's the lume. Seiko has done an outstanding job on the luminescent properties of this particular Seiko. The Seiko, by the way, is pet named the Seiko Frankenmonster across various web collecting forums and dive tool forums, simply because it's got that large bolt sticking out the bottom of the case, you know, that's the crown, but it also has these large bolts around the side to hold the case together, so it's pet named the Frankenmonster. So Seiko Lume is outstanding. This particular watch is outstanding. This is one of the brightest glowing Seiko divers out there. You can spend, again, just like any other watch, you can spend a lot more money on a Seiko diver and come away with a lume that's not quite as bright as this or long lasting as this. I think the Seiko Sawtooth comes close or is very nearly matching the luminescent properties here of the Frankenmonster, but this watch is brighter than the Seiko Monster or the Baby Monster or the SKX247, and you can go from there. So you've got a nicely done glow-in-the-dark pip at the 0-0 position on the unidirectional rotating dive bezel. And my camera here has a lot of trouble picking up faint luminescent light levels, so you've seen in my other video reviews inferior lumes that just fade out within the process of me reviewing it. You're not seeing that at all here with this Seiko. It's really cool, like just walking around. This lume glows during the daytime. Like if I'm driving down the road and I have my watch on my arm on the windowsill, then I take my arm and put my arm down by my side under the steering wheel a little bit or down on my lap, it glows. I mean, it's amazing how the Seiko Lume just soaks up so much light and absorbs it and redirects it out the front. It's just an unbelievable lume quality to all the Seiko divers. Okay, so let's go hit the lights. And there you have it. So I bought this watch used for $150, and again, you're looking at a fairly used watch, and I think you guys owe it to yourselves to consider one of these Seiko Frankenmonsters. Okay, thanks a lot.